Hello, Mr. Niebergall. Nice to see you.
Good evening. It's nice to be able to say hello to you in person, kind of.
Yes, via Zoom. We are so excited to have you with us and helping us with this amazing project. Well, the first question that we have for you is to please share with us about yourself. Where were you born, raised?
I was born in Los Angeles, in the Queen of Angels Hospital, which is now the Dream Center. If you drive down on the Hollywood Freeway towards downtown, you'll see this big building called the Dream Center. It used to be the Queen of Angels Hospital. I was born there. My grandfather delivered me.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
When I had to have my tonsils out, my grandfather arranged one of his friends, and it cost my dad $50 total to have go to the hospital and have my tonsils out.
Wow. We need those prices back.
Well, if the government would let these corporations stop running the health business, it'd be back to that, more or less.
I agree. Well, that's pretty amazing. You were born in LA, and so your whole life, you're a California native.
Yes, I went to LA City schools all the way through high school.
What high school did you attend?
North Hollywood High School.
North Hollywood High School, that's your home school. And after high school, you decided to attend college?
Cal State Northridge.
You're a CSUN alumni.
Yes, and I saw you graduate at your master's degree many years ago.
Yeah, many blue moons ago. I believe it's been like 5 or 6 moons ago. What inspired you to become a teacher?
Well, I was in the Boy Scouts, patrol leader, and I used to teach my members skills, first aid, tying knots, signaling. And then when I got into high school, I was tutoring my students. And one time I was in class and a teacher saw me talking to a student in class. She says, "What are you doing back there?" And I said, "Well, I'm explaining this problem to my friend." She said, "Well, come up and talk to the class." So I went up and I talked to the class and I taught the lesson to the class. And then I sat down and she never bothered me anymore. She thought I was just gossiping or something. So and I enjoyed that.
Oh, that's great. So that was your step into teaching.
Well, then my father got me to play golf when I was in high school. And I've been thinking, that's a lot of fun. I could be a math teacher and have all summer out, play golf around the world, and maybe go to different countries and teach a couple of years and play their golf courses. But then things changed, and I wanted to be a math teacher since I was in the 11th grade. But then the idea of being the golf coach and playing golf forever, that disappeared when I got lost in the mountains on a backpacking trip, and I discovered this wilderness ranch that had horses. And my superhero was Hopalong Cassidy. When I grew up, nobody had a TV. And the first neighbor had a TV, and the neighborhood was a little black and white TV. And she invited us, all us kids, over one night a week to watch her television. And Hopalong Cassidy was my hero on, used to watch the Hoppy movies. You can still find them now if you go online and look for Hopalong Cassidy to see his old movie. So that was my dream, to be a cowboy. And so when I found this wilderness ranch, I told the guy that I only had 2 hours on a horse at Griffith Park, but I'd like to learn how to help at the ranch. So he says, "Yeah, go ahead. I'm busy right now. Go to the city, grab yourself some boots and a hat, and come on back." So I did. And so that was my summer vacation, just raising and training horses, taking people on trips. And as soon as that was over, I came back and started teaching. First it was in college. College started in late September.
So you were sharing that you began also teaching in college.
Well, then I was on to college. I got a chance to, a professor would say, "Anybody want to read ahead and teach a class?" So I did that twice in college. In my math classes, I got to teach a lesson in college, and I just enjoyed that. And I said, "That's fun." can't believe they're going to pay me to be a teacher. Yeah, my first check was $400 the first
Oh, wow.
month, and that's the biggest check I ever received in my life. I said, wow, this is
This is
what I'm
living.
going to do. That was when candy bars were 5 cents a piece.
I remember the chocolate bars. Oh,
Yes. Now they're up to $1.50 or more, depending on where to go buy them.
oh wow. Yeah, they went up in price. What led you to choose math as the subject for teaching?
Well, when I was in 3rd grade, I changed schools because my parents moved and bought a little $11,000 house in the valley. And in the 3rd grade, the first lesson was they were borrowing and subtraction. And I had never learned that in my other elementary school. And so I copied the answer down about 3 times to the person next to me. If I raised my hand and asked the teacher, how do you get this answer? And she says, well, you just go here to the neighbor and you borrow one, you put it there and you do that. And then you can do that. That was the neatest thing. I said, wow, this is neat. So I just took off with my math there and just got all A's in all my math all the way through high school.
That's pretty impressive.
So I like math. I like doing the puzzle problems in the end of the book. You know, the miles and miles of multiplying and dividing. I didn't like that, but when they got to the word, they call them word problems now, but I just call them puzzle problems, where you read and you figure out what the answers. I like those.
That's pretty amazing. You found your calling pretty early in your life.
Yeah, well, I didn't know I was going to be a math teacher then. I just know I like math, but then just got into. Well, gee, look, I got all the weekends off. Got all right now. I'm on a 3-week vacation. All the vacations, I get all the vacations, and I go to the mountains. And you know, some people say, "Well, it's not a great salary." Well, you know, what makes you happy? And I can eat whatever I want, and I just what more do you want? I'm still pretty healthy.
The mountains were.
It was a wilderness ranch along the John Muir Trail, and I met some people up there one year, and I stopped at the ranch and helped them ride from Central California all the way to Canada. I was their packer guide on the
Wow.
Pacific Crest Trail, taking horses and mules, packing, and then back to the ranch. You know, one time we had 50 horses, then it got down to about 30 horses. And we raised our own. We had our own stallion, and I had 6 horses of my own at one time. I never brought them to the city. I just left them up in the mountains. Technically, they were mine. My great aunt gave me a horse that she had her last book. So I got to do that. So that's all gone now. No more horses. The doctor told me I recently really hurt my back bad, and I had 3 compression fractures, and all of a sudden I could barely walk. I didn't go to school for over a month until I don't know, just wiggled around, and pretty soon the nerves got unpinched. And so anyway, slowed down a little bit in that respect.
Yes. But you're doing the other part of your life that you love, which is still teaching.
Yes, and now I changed. One of the reasons I changed school is because now I can just walk to this high school. I don't have to get on the freeway every morning and spend an hour and a half or more on the freeway. I just walk 15 minutes down the street and go to my class, and 15 minutes back home.
Well, we're glad that you are still teaching. You have so much wisdom to offer to all of us. What year did you start teaching at Fremont?
January 1966.
And you were there for over 45 years?
53, I think.
53 years. What was Fremont like when you first started? And what was South LA like during that time?
Well, I really wasn't aware. All I know is I had my choice of interviews. And when I was in North Hollywood, Fremont always beat us in the city playoffs. So I said, well, let me go see what's happening in Fremont. I mean, we had some great football and basketball teams and baseball teams at North Hollywood. And we get in the city playoffs and we run into Fremont, and we lost to Fremont every time we had to meet Fremont. Never beat them. So I says, well, and it was down in the city, and I wanted to go out in the valley where the wind blew, but there no valley schools are open. So I said, well, let me go try Fremont. And then it was the largest school in the city. It was 4,000 students on campus. We had 0 periods. We had some extra room. And it was essentially an all-black high school. It was right after the Watts riots. And I didn't know what was going on in the city because I'd been away all summer. I didn't know any of this stuff that was going on. And I just went in there and found that teenagers are teenagers everywhere. And they all have their own little problems growing up and trying to figure out who they are.
Yes.
So I started there, and then pretty soon, after 3 years, I had seniority in the math department because of all the turnovers and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And administration turnovers, and teachers are complained about this or that. And I just wait for things to move on rather than try to find some other greener pastures. That doesn't work. There's problems in all the schools, every place you go. So eventually you have an administrator that's not very good. They disappear. They don't last very long. Same thing with teachers. So anyway, that's so I at Fremont, and plus I got, kind of like you get connection. People, students were asking me, I'm going to be back next year. It's kind of like you just, my idea of going around the world and teaching 2 or 3 years in some other state or some other country, Alaska, Hawaii, or I've been offered a post in China to teach calculus, speaking English. They recruited me, but I didn't do that. I just, no. And there are enough inner city problems. I felt like, well, why join the Peace Corps? Just stay here and try to make peace in the city.
Well, you've done an amazing job with all of us that have been blessed to cross your path.
Well, it's been enjoying helping teenagers find their way in life, and I enjoy teaching math. Now I'm teaching science too.
Wow. What area in science are you teaching?
I'm teaching, I'm at a high school that's a STEM magnet. It's grades 6 through 12. I have a 8th grade science class, Introduction to Physics. I have AP Physics and AP Statistics and AP Calculus.
Oh my.
I'm teaching 8th graders and 11th graders and 12th graders.
That's pretty amazing. In physics, that's awesome.
Yeah, science was my minor in college. I was a math major and physical science minor in college. Now I'm having to go back and relearn all my physics.
Which I'm sure comes natural to you.
Yeah, I just got to keep ahead of the students. And statistics, I've been teaching USC upper bound statistics for many summers, so I was pretty well familiar with what that curriculum was. But AP Physics is much more rigorous, and I have 2 hours, at least 2 hours preparation every day.
Oh wow!
I had to do all the problems before I give them to the students, so I don't get embarrassed in class. But sometimes I get confused on some problems. Say, well, we'll get back to this tomorrow. I got to study this again.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad that you're enjoying teaching it. It's all a learning process. What changes do you remember the most out of your years at Fremont and the community?
Well, after the riots, or I call them some people don't like to call them the riots. The Watts riots. My father was actually a fireman. He was down there trying to put out the fires, and he was upset because it seemed like some people were trying to get in their way to trying to put down the fires. Anyway, after that happened, colleges started to think, maybe there's some good students that we're overlooking. So what happened was, if my students had A's and B's in their high school classes, the college counselor could find a college for them. I've had students go to MIT and graduate in electrical engineering and design computer chips. Students go to Yale, Berkeley, and they got free education. And essentially, when I started college, they explained to me that my tuition the first year was $36 at State College, $36 tuition.
Wow.
And I had to buy my own books. And I drove from home, lived with my parents, and drove out to the college and back every day. So I went to 5 years of college on $1,000 a year. I mean, no, on $200 a year. It took me $1,000 that I had to pay, no scholarship, just my own money. And I had 5 years of college and got my teaching credential. Now it costs you $1,000 just to get into a college for a semester. And we're supposed to be giving an education to our children, not having we come from I have had students come back with $100,000 debt. Yeah, well, my first year at Northridge, they explained to us that we're essentially getting a free education. $36 doesn't cover the cost of my education, but he says, you're going to get education, you're going to get a job, you're going to be taxpayers, and you're going to pay for the education of those behind you. It makes sense to me. And parents teach their children the skills, and then they pass them on to their children. And it's not education. It's not a business. You're not trying to make money. It's a service you provide free as like parents. Did your mother charge you for cooking for you when you were little? Did you have to pay for your breakfast every morning?
Peeling potatoes.
You did chores around the house. That'd be part of the family chores and everything.
I agree with you. Education should be free.
And so that's the biggest problem and the biggest change. And now students, why go to college and the jobs are not there? They're cutting back on availabilities. Employment opportunities are not there like they used to be. We're outsourcing. Everything is made in some foreign country. You buy an automobile today and it's built in 6 different countries. The parts are then shipped and assembled someplace else. I went to look for a new van about 5 years ago. And they said, well, we got to wait a while because it's made in Brazil. I said, wait, Ford is making vans in Brazil? That doesn't make any sense. Why can't we have auto workers here making cars that we use? I'm out for trade and everything, but the way it's outsourced, it's just the world economy needs to be fixed a little bit. Plus, now we never worried about the environment, never about drinking water. Nobody's eating. I went to the store today and I looked out in front of the store. There must have been water in bottles just lined up outside. There's stacks of them. I said, what are people buying all this water for? Water's free. I mean, just open the tap in your house and drink it. Everybody's afraid, and all these scary people about all this poison drinking water. Well, some cities have poisoned the drinking water because they didn't maintain it. But it's like this vaccination thing going on today. I mean, we all got vaccinated. I had to have a smallpox vaccination when I was little. Everybody got it when I was in middle school. Everybody got the polio vaccination. And everybody went through that. And all of a sudden, now we got this flu going around, and everybody's afraid to get vaccinated. So that doesn't make any sense to me. I know I've been vaccinated. I've had my 2 vaccinations, and at the school we have to be tested every 2 weeks. So I've been doing that every 2 weeks. Actually, it's there about every week, but they like you to. They'll let you go 3 weeks after you get a negative test. But anyway, I'm 2 vaccinations, and all I had was, I felt a little stiffness for about a day and a half, and it was all gone. Well, they did it at school. It was free at school. Come and get a vaccination. Okay, I'll get a vaccination. I waited until it was at school. I didn't go like my brother and his wife. He went out and got vaccinated like in January. I didn't get my first vaccination until I think June. When it finally came into the school and said, okay, free vaccinations. And now the school district is saying, well, we wanted to make everybody mandatory vaccination starting in January, but now they threw that out. Says, no, we're not going to do that till maybe next fall. So now that's got all parents upset because they don't want to send their vaccinated or their unvaccinated children to a school that doesn't have vaccinations. Kind of all up in the air. Nobody's happy.
Nobody's happy. I agree. out of talking about the pandemic and the 1965 riots that happened right before you arrived at Fremont, in the last 53 years, do you feel that those have been the critical events in history that have affected the school and the community?
Well, it really opened up the colleges to students and less qualified students in terms of their grades, but their background and their street knowledge is what they're good at. I take students to a football game, and you have to park 2 blocks away, and I said, okay, let's go get in the football game. And then one of my students, no, we can't walk down that street. See those guys down there? Can't walk by them. I said, well, I never have a problem with that. I just walk by anybody. But my students just see something, and that's how they survive. They know what you do, what you don't do. I've had students murdered on the street and shot, drive-by shootings, and it's sad that happens to young people. Why should you be worried about walking down the street any place in this country? It's just not right.
I agree. I remember the shootings and the lockdowns.
Yeah.
And the many lives that we've lost because of gang violence.
And now schools have stormtrooper fences around them. They're like prisons. Now our Fremont had a nickname called Prismont. Where do you go? I go to Prismont. And now it really does look like a prison. They have these big stormtrooper fences all around the school that didn't used to have. They used to have chain link fences, easy to climb over. But now they have these unclimbable fences around the school.
Were those fences there when you arrived at Fremont?
Just chain link fences, that's all. That anybody can climb over. I can climb over 1 or 2. when I got locked out, and I couldn't get around, I said, well, I'll just climb over the fence.
I think we all climbed one of those fences at one point or another.
but now you can't climb the fences, really.
No, you get hurt.
You need a big ladder. You can get a big ladder and go over them, but you just, from the ground, you just can't climb them.
And speaking of the shootings and the gangs and the lockdowns, was that always there? Was that always such a big struggle of our community?
When I started, no, it was just, they used to have a few gang fights and local gangs. And, but there was no shooting, no killing. But then when they started to put drugs on the street, then it's about money in my corner and my livelihood, and you don't come in here and mess with me or you get shot. So then it became mean streets. And then a few years, maybe 20 years ago, the gangs had a truce. We had the Peace Bowl, and everybody agreed not to shoot and kill anybody, and it calmed down. But now there's still this crazy stuff going on, and it's not as bad as it was maybe 20 years ago, but it really got bad. But still, look at the stuff going on. There are these, what do they call these people walking down the street with guns and rifles and things, and trying to take over the streets and change the government. It just needs to change a little bit.
Yes, it does. What hopes do you have for the future of Fremont, or what do you wish would change to make it better?
Well, the biggest change in terms of the population is it was all Black, and then it gradually changed to Latino, and now it's essentially all Latino. And a lot of students in high school, most of them are bilingual, but in elementary school, there's still a lot of problems with language. And my students, I've got some great students. One family that I've been invited to quinceañeras and quinceañeras, and weddings and class reunions. And I get cards from students once in a while. it's fun. It's like my extended family. One family in particular, they were both in my calculus class. They were a year apart. They're my hiking club. They went to Yosemite and climbed the Half Dome. And they got married. And now they have 4 kids. All
Wow.
boys. All boys. And they have a house and they go on vacations and they do fine. One's a teacher, one's an architect.
That's beautiful.
The Torres family from Fremont High School.
Wow, that's really amazing. I remember your hiking trips.
Yeah, I've had a lot of nice adventures on our hiking trip, camping trips. Now, one of the big things that's changed is now my students give me money. I got $500 in gift cards and gifts for Christmas. I said, what is all this from?
That is beautiful.
Their parents are giving me gift cards. I've got $250, what do you call it? Amazon gift cards. I got to go figure out what I'm going to do with the $250 on Amazon. And they give me Starbucks gift cards. I'm going to give those to my brother because I don't drink Starbucks.
We got to put that out there. Mr. Niebergall does not drink Starbucks.
So that's a little different. But my students, essentially, their students are students, and they're going the same growing up pains that everybody goes through.
Yeah.
And the society is not supporting them as much as they could. I mean, it's people just trying to make money and hustle, and we should be helping our children learn and become happy with themselves and enjoy different fields, and everybody will go their own ways, and eventually will fill up what needs to be filled up in terms of careers and contributions to society.
Yes, I agree.
If you have some cultures have arranged marriages, and we haven't done that yet. But I know a lot of my students, their life would be a lot easier if they could forget about all this dating game nonsense and trying to outdress somebody and get fighting over the clothes they have because they got better shoes than you and blah, 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 and all the gossip and did you hear what she said and he said and all that stuff. So that's still going on a little bit.
Is it? Yes, we need to definitely teach our youth that there is life beyond relationships in high school.
Yeah, especially beyond high school. I remember one of my high school friends in high school, she said, I'll sure be glad when high school is over. I want to get out of this place. It's just too much stuff going on that she couldn't stand. And then I show my students a picture of this white girl yelling at this black girl because they're integrating, it's a famous picture. She's yelling at her from behind because they're integrating Little Rock High School. And here's a picture, 50 years later, they're friends and talking about it, but how silly they were to go through all that nonsense and screaming and yelling and worrying about, gee, there's a black student in my high school, how dare you, you know, it's stupid.
And now they're best friends.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they're best friends, but they just had a reunion and talked to each other, I guess.
It's wonderful. So we forget that we are all human.
Yes, and we're all on spaceship Earth. That's put in my Christmas card. I think I wrote that in the note I sent you. Is we have to get together and work on helping this spaceship Earth survive because it's going overboard with all this pollution and worrying about drinking water and buying bottled waters. Jesus, the only time I bought a glass of water was in Palm Springs when we had to hike up this big hill, and then at the top of the hill they had 5 cents a glass for a glass of water. I just drink, I don't like the chlorine in the water in my LA water, but I just set out in a stainless steel pan for 2 hours and all the chlorine evaporates and I'm not drinking the chlorine. So that's how I get my drinking water right out of the tap, free water.
And there's test kits nowadays. You can test your water to see if there's any.
Well, the
chemicals.
only thing I like is they still put fluoride in it. They used to not put fluoride in it. Now that's a poison. It's something that's left over from industrial processes. And they say, well, we can make some money out of this. Tell everybody they need to take fluoride.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what some of your toothpaste people buy. You know, say, warning: don't let any child under 2 years old touch this because it's poisonous. It could kill them. Toothpaste.
Yes.
If you're over two, you're probably pretty safe. I had a dentist tell me you don't need toothpaste. All you need to do is floss once in a while to keep the area around your teeth, your gums healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Brush and get the food from out between your teeth and floss a little bit.
What advice would you give to Fremont alumni?
Just hang in there and things will work out, because when I started in '66, I think a few years later, they had a Democratic convention for president and there were riots. And I show my students some clips of that. I say, this is how it used to be. And now we're back to having more riots just like this. But it works its way out. You know, it just, all these people that can't figure out that we can all live peaceably together, don't have to go. And the idea of breaking in and threatening the vice president and the members of Congress with death, what's that all about? That's not our country. Well, at least some of those persons are being put in jail. And we'll see if this other, I won't even say his name, he just keeps denying that he lost. He said he was stolen and they did that to me and we'll get him. Come on, let's give me some money. All he's doing is hustling people for money and they still giving it to him.
Yes.
So if this country doesn't wake up to all that stuff and start get some of these bills passed and work on cleaning up the environment, as richest spaceship Earth is going to be inhabited by insects. They'll survive. And we'll start all over again. We'll start all over again.
I agree. We do need to take care of this planet and take care of each other.
So that's my mission. Just hang in there and do something positive with your life.
What advice would you give to the current students at Fremont, to our youth?
Just what I've been mentioning the last half hour is that the screaming and yelling and backbiting and trying to make fun of somebody because they're a little different, because they slightly disagree with you or for some reason or another. When I was in 3rd grade, a student came into school that was barefoot and everybody's making fun of him. So the next week he came to school with a brand new pair of shoes. So those same idiots put their shoes on top of his to scuff him up, stepped on top of his brand new shoes, just to, just to intimidate him and say, where does that come from? Why would somebody do something like that? This is 3rd grade. So we still have people like that.
It's very sad. The bullying needs to stop.
Yeah, that's what it is. Bullying's been going on forever.
And there are bullies, unfortunately, at different stages of our lives.
So I mention that once in a while to my students. It's nice to be nice. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. My mother would ask me, how do you like my new hairstyle? I says, yeah, it's okay. I don't know why women want to know how their hairstyle is. They want somebody to say, oh, it's beautiful. I don't know. I like my mother when she had a ponytail when I was little. Maybe that's why I like horses, because horses have tails. What do you imprint on when you're little? My mother always had a ponytail. So then she became 50 and she got this curly thing, just curls and I said, no character in that. I didn't tell her that. I just said, it's all right.
Go back to the ponytail, Mom.
Yeah.
What matters most is the inside, and we forget that. Companies out there make us forget that with all that advertisement.
That's true. That's they're brainwashed from the beginning.
Yes, and it's very sad. Any words of wisdom that you would like to leave us with?
Words of wisdom. Just read all you can read about history and what's happened in the past, and try to relate that to what's happening now, and maybe convince some people that you believe it should be this way now. Just don't go out and shoot them because they disagree with you, because that's the way you see people work today. They say, well, you don't like me, bang, you're dead. Now, you got to sit down and have a conversation, work out, have room for everybody. There's enough food in this earth to feed everybody. Nobody should be starving. I see food thrown away all the time, especially in this breakfast program, breakfast in the classroom. My students don't want to drink milk. I bring it home and drink it myself. I tell them, stop giving me so much food, because the students don't eat it. They'll eat junk food, but they won't eat, fresh carrots. They don't want to eat carrots. These are fresh carrots. You familiar with the breakfast in the classroom stuff that we get now?
No, it's the first time I hear of it.
Well, it's been going on for about, I don't know, maybe 8, 9 years now.
Mhm.
And it's just wasting food. Finally, the cafeteria says if we give it to you, we can't take it back. You got to throw it away. They won't. If you give back the cafeteria, says here, nobody, then just throw it away. It's just no rhyme and reason to what they're doing with the food in this city. And we got people starving in this city, almost starving.
It's really interesting to me that if the statistics or the data is saying that our students are lacking food, I'm just really surprised that they would choose not to eat it if they need it.
All they wanted, Cheetos, hot Cheetos.
Yeah.
That's their favorite food. It's ruining their interior plumbing. All that fried fruit and all the salt and all the sugar. With their internal plumbing is going to be ruined.
Wouldn't it be nice if we get rid of all the snacks that aren't healthy in this world and stop producing them?
And then all the trash we have. I mean, we used to have a milkman when I was little. Milkman would bring milk in bottles and set it on your wherever you wanted to set it, and then you put it in the refrigerator. And every couple of days, you'd put out the empty bottles, so they'd take and wash them and reuse them. Same thing with soda pop. Soda pop was all in glass bottles, and I remember if you take them back to the store, you get 2 cents refund for every soda bottle. That was a way to get some extra change if you're a young kid. And now everything is thrown away. Even the aluminum cans, most of them try to recycle those, but I don't think a lot of them get recycled. And the milk, everything was, and now you can hardly open packages because you need a knife to cut through the cellophane. It's not cellophane, it's some synthetic, all kinds of different under of chemistry and oil. That's what it is.
Everything is processed nowadays. Everything that is packaged is processed with something that's not good for us.
Yeah, most of it. So I get fresh broccoli and fresh carrots and chop them up and have them every day. And I get stacks of beans and lentils and brown rice, and I boil that up and eat that every day.
That sounds good to me.
And it's filling. And now we got to go to my brother's house for Christmas, eat a bunch of his extended family. One of the wives, she just makes all these really good desserts, cookies and pies and stuff, and I got to try one of each. So that'll
You
take
get to
me,
splurge during the holidays.
it'll take me a week to get that all out of my system, back to a regular diet.
How long has the Fremont Fountain been there?
It was given by one of the first classes of Fremont. They gave that gift to the high school. And then for years it wasn't working. And then finally they redid it, and now it works beautifully. The last years, I haven't been there for 3 years. So, but I say the last 5 years I was there was all redone, and really, and then they gutted the school out and redid it. By gutted it out, I mean they took everything out. All that was left was the cement floors.
Wow.
Took, the big 3-story building.
Mm-hmm.
That was being built when I started at Fremont. That's every year I'd come back from in the mountains all summer. They tore down the building I was in and they're building a new one. So I was in about 4 of the old buildings until they finally tore them all down. And the auditorium was condemned till they reinforced that. And everything else is brand new, the gym. And they didn't do it right. They got a stairway in there. You can't figure out where you are. You don't know how to get off the next floor. You go up one floor of the stairs and then it disappears. Where do I get to the next floor? Before you just go up the stairs, you're there, down the stairs, you're there. In the bathrooms, they had one faculty bathroom at the far end of the hall. And it only had about 2 stalls in it. Well, 4, count men and women. And so what they did was they made the student bathroom a faculty bathroom on the 2nd floor because there weren't enough faculty restrooms. So the students now don't have enough restrooms. They have to go to the 3rd floor or the bottom floor. They can't go to the 2nd floor restroom, which was designed for them. And whoever did this, these architects, they didn't have any insight. They didn't ask anybody what the problems were. So it seems like architects just kind of do a hodgepodge of stuff, or somebody pays them off and say, here, do a cheap job for us, we'll pay you. And the whole system is corrupt in terms of, look at all these consultancy lawyers that they have to have for the LA school district. It's all that money we never spent on. And all this testing, that's a business. They don't need to test my students. All these tests are giving them that students don't even care about them because they don't affect their grades any. And somebody had an idea, well, you got to see where they are, blah, blah, blah. I never get any results from those tests. Maybe I get a result that's 6 months after the fact and the students aren't in my class anymore. Oh, that's what they did to mine. It's just a business. Same thing with textbooks. Textbooks are massive. I mean, I look at my geometry textbook in high school. I used to see his geometry textbook now. It weighs at least twice as much, maybe almost 3 times as much, because the textbook manufacturers want to have everything in that book that everybody would want. So it's full of stuff that teachers don't have time to do everything in that book. So I remember one year I just didn't even pass out books. I just created my own lessons and said, I don't need a textbook.
It's too expensive.
So that's the business. Yeah, I got my first calculus college textbook, $9.50. Now you go now and get a freshman calculus book in college, it's almost $300.
I remember. They're very expensive. I agree. So it seems like they remodeled and rebuilt the school from the inside, because from the outside it still looks kind of the same. But they didn't build it correctly.
And then the air conditioning, let's talk about Fremont. Air conditioning is always leaking, putting puddles in the floor, maybe leaking down the side of a classroom building. And I remember pulling out buckets and putting it under the leak, and they try to stop that leak, and pretty soon they think they stopped that, and it didn't stop it. It seemed like the air conditioning system was built right on the edge. If it gets a little overtaxed, it just breaks down. No, for example, I've got the same vacuum cleaner that my mother bought when she was first married. And then she got another one. Then they moved out in a retirement home, and she gave me the vacuum cleaner. And it still works. I don't use it very much, but it still works. That's as old as I am. Now things are built to break. For example, in the mountains where we had freezers, finally we got a new freezer. Oh, great, we got a new freezer. Now all of a sudden, we had that freezer in there for 20 years. So we now got a new freezer. After about 3 years, something wrong with it. So the guy told me, it's cheaper to buy a new one than have us fix the old one. it's planned obsolescence. They don't make things to last anymore because they
No.
got to keep making them. So we don't make them too good. We want you to, it's like cars. You got to buy a car every 3 years, 4 years. So where's a good old car that lasts?
Yes, I'll like to know that myself. So the only standing structures that are original is the fountain and the auditorium.
Yeah, the auditorium, we got some old pictures of Fremont, and the auditorium was there. And also it was all farmland around Fremont. And then it's all built up now from what it was. You can find that online, some old pictures of the original Fremont, and it had a big front yard and no fences. So when they remodeled it for when I started, they built a new building on the front yard. Then when they got built, then they knocked down the old building. They used to go in the auditorium. You still see that scar on the side of the auditorium where it used to connect. There's nothing's connected there anymore. And we used to have an incinerator. That's incinerator smokestack is still at Fremont on the end of the auditorium. It's everybody in the city had incinerators. We didn't have garbage. We had a garbage pickup once a week. No garbage disposals. No clothes dryers. Everybody hang there. I don't use the clothes dryer. I hang it out. I tie up a line and I hang it outside and let the sun dry it. And it really smells good when it's out in the sun. Here, a freshly washed, sun-dried towel, it just smells good. You want to, but I mean, one time it got to where I needed to use a dryer because it rained for 3 days. Like it's going to rain for 3 days now, probably. And I went to the dryer and I said, okay. And I got my towel out and I couldn't stand to smell it. I said, God, this stinks. Where'd this come from? So I don't do that. No more dryers. I put up lines in my living room and let them hang there for 3 days before I let them dry.
I know it's hard when it's raining. Wow. Well, I'm really thankful. We are thankful to hear you speak to us. And I know everyone at Fremont misses you, I'm sure, and the students. You are such a legacy. You're a legend.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know I'm having trouble in terms of my stamina and my strength is wasting away like everybody. After a few years, you lose that.
You still have it in you, Mr. Niebergall. Don't give up on us.
So it's good to see students like you, my former student.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm
glad we connect.
And I know you've done a lot of good things supporting Fremont and creating scholarships and things for the students. That's nice programming.
Thank you.
And are we going to have another online dinner this time, it looks like? Is they're shutting it all down again?
It seems like we might not. We are actually hoping we can do like a winter gala. We were shooting for possibly December 2022, but with everything going on, we don't know what's going to happen.
Well, what's going to happen is everybody needs to get vaccinated and this all be over. Then you get a little flu once in a while and nobody's worried about it. And that's what the science is telling us now. If you have these vaccinations, you get the flu. You don't die, you get a little sick and you recover.
No, I agree. I really do pray that everyone that can get vaccinated gets vaccinated.
Well, I'm gonna mine 6 months is in January. I've had it the last one, my second one, 6 months in January. But I'll wait till the school has it on campus for free again if they want me to get my third one. And I don't know what's going to happen. They said that we weren't going to have to wear masks starting in January if we were vaccinated. And they changed that. They said, no, you're going to have to wear masks again. And that's another thing that's very uncomfortable. Students can't hear me. And sometimes I feel like I can't breathe. I
Yes.
try to go up the stairs and like get my heart going, and I just pull my mask down so I can breathe.
No, we have the same issue as well. It's tough wearing masks. Our lungs are not made to be locked.
Well, I think some masks are better than others. The masks they give me at school are just kind of right up against your face, and some of these masks have a support that gets it away from your face, so at least you can talk and don't feel like you're being suffocated.
Yes, at least you can breathe with some of them. It's been a challenge for us as well, finding the right mask. But hopefully things will get better. I keep being hopeful. We have to be
Yes,
hopeful.
I'm hopeful, and there are a lot of good things going on. A lot of people doing a lot of good things that you don't hear about. You hear all the stuff that sells newspapers and does advertisement. People stop listening to those programs and have some good news. People are actually doing some very positive things in this earth, and got to give them a chance to do that.
And we want to hear more of those stories.
Yes.
We want to hear the good things that are going on in this world. And it's important for our kids to hear that, there's more good in this world than anything else.
That's right. If you just stop trying to sell newspapers and all this other junk.
Yes. There's so much work to do.
There's something in a little phrase in ice hockey. Red ice sells tickets. That's a hockey expression. Red ice sells tickets. Because if the players get out there and start fights and bust each other up and put blood on the ice, and people like to see that. Go to the hockey game. What do you go to the hockey game for? So we can see those players bash into each other and fight. Why do you go to racetracks, automobile races? Oh, we're waiting to see the crashes. Why do you go to football games? Oh, to see those great tackles. Well, some of those players are dirty players. You watch them, and they're trying to cut that down in football now with just dirty football.
Now that you mentioned football, did you meet Ricky Bell?
Yes, he was in my. He wasn't in my class, but he was in my mountaineering club. And in one football game, he got jabbed his eye, and they had me take him to the emergency hospital after the football game. That morning side used to be emergency hospital. It was fun. I took it down there, and I told him, "Okay, sit here, and we'll try to get a doctor to look at you." And all of a sudden, here's a guy with a gun, a security officer in the emergency hospital with a gun. I asked him, "Why you got a gun? This is a hospital." He says, "Well, some of these women here are here because their husbands got mad at them, and I'm here to keep the husbands from following them in the hospital and beating them some more." What's going on in this world?
It's really sad.
Anyway, he just got jabbed in the eye with somebody's accidental finger. And then he had put on charity basketball games at Fremont. He brought his USC #1 football team. I never saw so many 230-pound football players so agile and so quick. I can see why they were the national champions, because they're just fast and speedy. And he had some golf tournaments he sponsored, charity golf tournaments, Ricky Bell golf tournaments. So I saw him many times after he graduated also. And he got a rare muscle disease, and his wife and child were there when we designated the football field with his name.
It's very sad that he passed so young. I just had the opportunity to read up on him. I did a did you know section on him for this big Fremont group on Facebook, and it was really inspiring to read his story, and very sad that he passed so young. He cared so much about Fremont and the community, and he was a proud Pathfinder.
Yes. Another thing he said, high school and college was fun football, pros were not fun football. All they were interested in is what you can do for them to win the game and make them money. And as soon as you got injured, they'd give you shots so you wouldn't feel any pain. It makes your bones just grind on each other. And you know, some football players, they can't even raise their shoulder up like this after they've played football. And in the mountains one time, there's a pro football player who's retired, brought his family up. And at breakfast, I had 6 pills that he was taking before he ate breakfast. And I asked him, what are all those pills for? He says, well, that one is for the pain here. And that one's for the side effect of that one. And that one's for the side effect of that one. He's taking all these drugs because he ruined his joints playing football. Mm-hmm. So at least some of these football players are quitting when they're young because they've got enough injuries. I don't want to get any more injuries because of this. I'm going to live the rest of the life with my body, and I don't want it to be crippled up with what they're making me do.
Out of all the students that walked in and out of your classroom, which ones have, I can see Ricky Bell made an impact on you. Would you say every single one of them made a long-lasting impact in your life?
Well, some of them, you don't really get to know them. They're quiet. And you hope that they will, they pick up your traits. I mean, some of them will talk like I do. They'll get up and take over the class. And I said, gee, that's me. So, and then some don't say anything, and they pass the class and move on. And so I think just, I have some of my relatives. I didn't get to know some of my relatives, growing up with all my aunts and uncles and everything. Some of them I barely got to know, but they're all, as a family, I think as a group, you have an impact.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, I remember going back to some class reunions, and I'll get an invitation, maybe 10 years, 20 years, come in and visit us, and then come to our banquet. Those are like proms when they have a 20-year class reunion. It's like going to a prom. Anyway, I remember this one young lady in particular. She was very quiet and hardly said anything when she was in my class at Fremont. All of a sudden, she's leading the whole group, and it's like she's taking over the senior class and organizing all this, and it's just a whole different person from what she was, a little quiet young lady when she was in class at Fremont. So mostly they outgrow all that and develop their personalities.
It's a process of growth, becoming into our own person.
And that takes time, and as you're constantly growing. You're constantly changing. Person that say, well, I'm growing. I says, well, you don't know anything about being growing. If you say you're growing, that means you're really in trouble. If you think that's all you need to do in life is, now just a teenager, so you can't talk to me like I'm growing. My father can't tell me stuff like that. I'm a grown teenager. Well, I remember my mother, when she got married, after about 3 months, she went back to her mother and says, Mother, I didn't know it was going to be like this. My mother told me this. And her mother told her, well, you married it, and just go back there and deal with it. And she did. And they were married until they both passed away.
Oh, that's beautiful. I wish it was still like that. And there's still couples that last from the point they're married till.
Yes. And some just think, my father used to joke with my mother, well, we've been married 20 years, it's time for a new model. My mother would say, well, shut up.
It's important to learn to laugh through it all, right?
Yes.
I remember during pre-COVID, during our visits at Fremont, one of the things that left me, I don't know what the right word is, but there were always young ladies fighting each other. And I often wondered, when I was there as a student, it was, gangs and drugs and mostly boys. But then it just seemed like it changed to young ladies. And I'm just wondering, what do you think is that comes from, where Do you feel that, is it that the students feel oppressed and that they feel that they need to fight each other as a way of releasing that oppression? Or is it that they just don't like each other?
Well, there's a little bit of both. Sometimes they don't like each other.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the society they grew up in terms of, it seems like if you don't have a boyfriend, there's something wrong with you in high school. Well, that's nonsense. In fact, I would tell my seniors, the prom is a celebration of what you've done for 12 years. And it doesn't matter who you go with. And the food is either not so good, the food's not so good, and the music not so good. There's always complaining. But you're there with your friends to say, just have a celebration. And mostly when you go to the prom, you look and see what happens, and most of the girls are just talking with each other. And the boys are just kind of standing there. They don't know what to do. They got these suits on they're not used to wearing. And the young ladies are really running the show. And they decide they want to go dance with somebody else, they will. And a lot of them, they don't. I remember one young lady, she wanted this boy to ask her to the prom, and he didn't want to ask anybody to the prom. So she said to me, let's I have a group of students. Can you give us a ride? And we'll just invite the boys to, have them ride along too. So this boy went with us, and she was happy that he went, but she never married him. She just was happy to see that he was there. And nobody was their date. They just came in. It's like one year now they have this thing called a party bus. You know what a party bus is?
I've heard of them, but never been in a party bus.
Well, it's just a big oversized van. It's like a mobile home that has seats in it.
Oh my.
It's a little fancier than a mobile home. And you rent it, and you get all your friends in there. And you, about 4 years ago, my students asked me to give them a ride to the prom. I met at this meeting to this house, and all of a sudden, there's more and more showing up. And I say, well, if you all fit in there, we'll go. So it was a short ride. It was just downtown where the prom was. And then after the prom, they said, okay, we don't need a ride home now. I said, well, what are you going to do? I said, we got a party bus going to meet us here. So they all went home in the party bus. And I never saw them again. All I heard was they leased it to a guy that was not 18. He signed for it. And we're in the party bus. The young ladies didn't take their spiked heels off, and some poked holes in the upholstery. And when it was all over, they wanted him to make up for the damages. And he says, well, I don't have any money to pay for that. And he was underage. He wasn't 18. So that's what happened with the party bus. They had a good time, except they didn't.
They didn't have the money to pay for the damage.
No, he just disappeared.
Youth is always youth, no matter the generation. We're all young at heart at one point in our lives.
Yeah, it's good to be young at heart and just learn to be responsible in certain situations so you don't hurt anybody or yourself or anybody else.
Yes, I agree. Were those issues still there when you left Fremont with the fighting? And
yeah, there's still some girls that want to beat up other girls. And I don't know where all that came from. It's kind of like she disrespected me or something like that.
Does that happen at North Hollywood High School?
I'm at the Science Academy. I'm not at North Hollywood High School. It's close to North Hollywood. It's in North Hollywood, but it's a brand new high school. It's not that brand new. It's about 5 years old. And it was built on a toxic waste site.
Oh my.
And supposedly they cleaned it all up. It was a city yard for maintenance vehicles, and they dumped a lot of stuff on the ground there. And supposedly they dug it all out, but I don't know. I don't smell anything coming out of it like one of our local middle schools had a big problem with that, getting all that out of there. And they had the same thing with the downtown high school, because it was all oil wells on that hillside, and they just capped the oil wells, and then they found out that it was venting out and causing, they're afraid the school was going to blow up someday because all the underground gas leaking into the school. So it was supposed to be a big, massive high school, but now they cut it down about half the size it was supposed to be. So we're just going through all those things. Yeah, it seems like the people lobby the superintendent and the school board, and they make these decisions, and they don't really get out and see what's going on in the classroom and asking the teachers what they really need and what they would like to see happen. They throw these Chromebooks on it. One time they say everybody has to have a computer. Well, it turns out the students knew how to hack the computers and do anything they want on them. And then, so now they're breaking down, and now they can't replace them. And now all these cell phones, again, that's a new item I never had to deal with when I started teaching. Get students to turn off the cell phones. Seems like they're addicted to those. I walk down the street, I walk around the neighborhood, people walk down the street just looking at their cell phones. I said, does everybody have a cell phone? I don't have I got a cheapo cell phone that I have for emergencies. I don't know if it's run out of battery now or anything. It's just sitting I only have it in case I take my students on a trip and I need to call somebody for an emergency. And I just never use it. $10, $3 a month, minimum, whatever. So I think it's all dead now because I haven't used it for all this semester. Always on their phones. They've got to look at the phones. I gotta jump on them and get mad at them. I want them to listen to me. I don't want to listen to the cell phone. Now they got these Wi-Fi things in their ears. They can stick them in their ears, don't have wires on them. They can listen to music coming from someplace. Please unplug your ears. You used to be able to see the wires, but now sometimes you just have something sticking in their ear they can listen. And that's the problem. Supposedly students are supposed to have this cell phones on during class time because the parents will complain, well, what if there's an emergency? Well, so what are you going to do about it? You're going to run to the school if there's an emergency? You're going to run home? What are you going to do? The fire department will take care of emergency. You know? Everybody's afraid it's going to have an emergency and they got to talk to somebody every 5 minutes or something's wrong with them. Well, I enjoy walking to school not hearing anything but the birds in the trees and a few traffic sounds and a few dogs barking, and I don't need to be listening to somebody's cell phone talking to me. Now, if you might call me, I don't answer my telephone. I don't have a telephone because my mother said I had to have a telephone.
Okay.
And now all my relatives, I say, if you want to call me, you ring 3 times and hang up and then call back. Otherwise, I'm not going to answer the phone. And plus, I'm not in the house half the time anyway. I'm not walking around someplace because I walk to the store, walk to the bank. I used to walk to the show, but I haven't been to a show over a year because of all this pandemic nonsense.
And we can't even go to the movies anymore.
Yeah, I used to have movie parties with my students, and they kind of a reward for doing well on their tests and doing well in my AP classes. And I take them to Universal Studios, go to the Hard Rock Cafe, and go to a movie. And now I haven't done any of that for 3 years. No more. I've been on hike with my students in 3 years.
Oh, that's really sad. Well, the hikings I feel were so important for those students that went. It took you away from your everyday troubles. Yeah,
you get out and you get tired, and you just. I remember one of my students saying, "Gee, it's quiet out here. Ever been a place where it's been quiet? Sound of silence.
It's different."
In Yosemite, one of my students, don't we have to lock all this stuff up? No, this is Yosemite National Park. Nobody's around here trying to steal everything. Just to zip up the windows so the bears don't go in there when you don't see a bear sleeping inside your tent when you come back. And that's another thing. They got scared of bears.
I'm scared of bears.
One of my students walking down the trail from Yosemite Falls, he came running back. I said, "What's wrong with? There's a bear down there. There's just this big dog he saw behind a tree, thought it was a bear, so he came running back up the trail."
Oh, yes.
Now, Bears run away from you. They're afraid of you. Unless there's a mother with a cub, just stay away from a mother with a cub. I've had hummingbirds attack me. Hummingbirds got to their nest, all of a sudden, zing, 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 zing. What's going on here? Hummingbirds will dive bomb you. Yeah, hummingbirds.
I didn't know that.
That big?
I
Yeah.
see them here. Wow, I didn't know that they attack.
The mother or the father just trying to get you to get away from their nest.
That makes sense.
Yeah, little quail, and I've run into a lot of little quail hiking through in the mountains. And I remember one time this mother quail, she came out, they're about 8 inches high. She came charging me with her wing going, I said, gee, what's the problem? I just backed away from her. And then when I got enough away, they have 10 little babies. All of a sudden, she took her little babies and ran over here just to protecting her young. Well, one time I came upon a bear, and the bear had a cub, and she had the cub jump upon this tree. And then she stood up on her hind feet and stood up and looked at me. And, like say, okay, backpacker, you move. What are you going to do? I said, well, I took my eyes. I'm going to walk over here. So that's what I did. And then I kind of looked out the side of my vision and saw she took the cub and they're running off.
When did you start the hiking groups at Fremont? Was that since you first started teaching?
Yes. I remember one of the first groups was, it was a slow winter, and I had a basketball player, a football player, and a tennis player in my calculus class. And I said, hey, you guys want to go for a hike? And the weather's still good. So I went, and we almost climbed the top of Mount Whitney. So that was the first trip I took students on. Then all of a sudden I'm taking Easter vacation, taking students to Death Valley, to Yosemite, to Grand Canyon, camping and hiking. Then pretty soon some girls want to go along. I said, wow, I don't know if I should take any girls along. So that's kind of a chaperone problem. But it turns out they chaperone themselves. They won't let any guys chaperone. They'll tell them where they stand.
Good for
So
them.
I didn't have any problem with that.
Well, I feel like I missed out on your hiking trips. I might have gone to one when there was snow. I don't know if that was you that took us, or I can't imagine it being any other teacher. But did you do snow hikes?
Oh yeah, all the time we try to go on snow hikes. Go up and get on the climb a steep hill and slide down on the rear on their pants. Yeah, that's fun.
Yes, I do remember that, and I remember having a really hard time walking in the snow.
Yeah, when you want to make snowman, everybody say, "Oh, let's make a snowman." Well, after about 2 minutes putting your hands in the snow, they start to really get cold, and you say, "Well, let's make a small snowman. We don't need to make a big snowman."
If you remember any of the famous do-up groups that came out of Fremont?
No, I don't remember. They weren't very famous at Fremont, but I know some of them did become famous.
Yes, I just learned that from the interview that I did with the photojournalist. The Penguins, the
Well, we had
Jaguars.
there was some backup singers, and I'm trying to remember the name of the family. They were, and we have many professional musicians go on from Fremont.
Yes. When did Fremont, because now it's broken up into small learning communities, but prior to that, when I was there, I don't remember there being small learning communities.
No, that's some educators' idea back east to have small learning communities and separate everything. And that didn't work out very good because they wouldn't let you transfer between small learning communities.
Interesting.
For example, supposedly AP classes were supposed to be immune to that. I used to have AP classes that have all the communities in. Then they started to separate the schools. They weren't going to allow that anymore. You had to be If you didn't have the AP teacher in your small learning community, then you couldn't take the AP class. All these things started to happen. And well, they try to break it up into certain emphasis, emphasize this, emphasize that. But it never worked out a smooth program. It wasn't. Students were told they had to take this class, like here in this community, you had to take this class as an elective, and they didn't want to take that class. Well, everybody is supposed to be college ready. Everybody's supposed to have A through G requirements done by the end of their senior year. And the small unit communities, they were going to have certain electives that emphasize certain things, like theater arts, music. You'd have those electives that everybody had to take the minimum Cal State requirements to enter Cal State. And still some graduate, but they don't have those minimum requirements.
Interesting. I was just wondering what the motivation was to breaking down into small learning communities at Fremont.
Well, it's supposed to be make it attractive for students to come to Fremont, because you can come to Fremont and get in this small learning community, which is emphasis in music, if you like music, theater arts, or pre-med, if you like an extra science class, physiology or something. Or if you want to go into engineering, more science classes, AP math classes. For the other small communities, would offer AP calculus, but you still have to have at least 2 years of, you have to go through algebra 2 to satisfy the STEM requirement. I mean, for college ready.
There's an arts program now at Fremont that emphasizes theater and music and art.
One of the communities is supposed to emphasize, I don't know which one, it changes all the time.
That's good to hear. I didn't realize that. I thought it had gone away, the arts programs.
Well, it seems to have done that because they can't get a music teacher. Well, when I was there, we had half a music teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they got it going, then somebody broke in and stole all the instruments. For some reason, they're always being stolen. And they cut out all the shop classes. Used to have all kinds of shop classes for students to work with their hands and make things, learn about metal, wood, electric shop, auto shop. All that has been phased out of high school. Used to have a driver education class in high school. That was part of their health and driver education went together. And now I don't think they even have that. And you used to be able to take driver training on campus as part of you didn't have to take driver training, but it was there if you wanted to. I think they phased that out. I used to have my students come back and say, if I broke the car, do I have to pay for it? No. One student turned around a corner and kept the wheel turned and let it go to roll back, and the wheel hit the curb and broke the wheel. Just the lug nut. And yeah, I broke the car this morning.
I remember drivers.
But that's all changed. They've taken that all away.
Wow,
Like
we
used to have a cooking class. You could learn how to cook. One of my classrooms was when we started moving things around and tearing things down. I was in the cooking room. It was full of stoves and refrigerators, and it has a washing machine. And that's all gone now.
It's very sad. Those skills are important.
And that photography department, we talked about how we used to have do our own, all the photos in the yearbook were done by our photographers in the photography class and developed. That's all gone. No more of that. And we used to have a big cosmetology class, and I don't know whether that's still going on now or not. I think when I left, there was still one lady teaching cosmetology. But see, that's a skill, and I guess, but is that all we do? Is make people that can do hair. That's why people go to Fremont, so they can take cosmetology. Because they got, it was a rigorous program where they got almost a license to be a cosmetologist.
And it's become such a big field.
Yeah, that's another thing we don't need. You don't need to go have your hair done by anybody. You can do it yourself.
Now there's YouTube videos.
Yes, you can go on YouTube and do it yourself. And that's another thing. All this stuff, all this college stuff, you can do that on college. You can do that online. You can be in the class, and you just don't get the degree. You have to pay the tuition to get the degree, but you can just, I show my students a clip from Harvard in philosophy, and a big college class, a lecture. And if you watch enough of them, you see they have books they have to read and turn in papers and all that. But you don't need to go to college if you want an education. It's all online. Find anything you want.
Yes.
Just look at something this week about things that go faster than sound. I mean, faster than light. The universe is expanding, and expanding so fast that there's some stars we'll never be able to see because the light will never reach us because things are changing so fast. So then what is the universe? How far does it go? We don't know.
What do you think about this whole space technology with SpaceX sending people
Well,
up?
there's a lot of that technology that's useful on Earth. You know, the computers, handheld, cell phones, all that came from having the miniaturized computers so we could go to the moon. If we couldn't make computers small that worked on the moon, then we couldn't go to the moon because things have to be done. And, you know, in real time, the astronauts have to be able to make some decisions. They can't wait for, there's a slight delay going to the moon from the speed of light. Now, Mars, that's another thing. You go on Mars, you're seeing something that happened, I don't know, a half hour ago when they get something from Mars. You don't have onboard computers that can tell the robot knows it's about to go over a cliff. If you're here on the Earth saying, well, look, there's a cliff there, tell the computer to turn right or it's going over the cliff. It's too late. He won't get that command for half an hour. He's already gone over the cliff. So all that miniaturization is what gives us all the cell phones we have now. It's amazing. I mean, remember one time one of my students, her husband was in Arizona, and I don't know, she's taking me out to dinner or something. Her and her family, they're going to go. And here, you want to talk to Lamont? I said, where's Lamont? He's in Arizona. Well, how can I talk to him? I'm in my car. No wire, no telephone. It's the cell phone. Hello, Lamont. Yeah, that's you. It's amazing. And now my students, they just want to, when I look at what they're doing, they're playing games on their cell phone. Somebody's always playing a game, a pool, trying to knock these, playing a little computer game with pool. And she said, I'm really good at this, watch. That's all she's down there just concentrating on that. Addicted to that, playing games. I guess there's some exciting games out there. I remember the first one I saw, I took my students up to Mount Baldy. And it was cold, we got inside, and here's this television set that's like a tabletop. And this little thing of light is going back and forth across it. And you put a quarter in it, and you got a controller that would get in front of it and kick it back to the other side. It's called Pong. It was just a electronic ping pong game. And my students were fascinated with that. I said, come on, let's go. Let's play this some more. That was the first video game I saw, Pong.
That was one of the first games that was put out by Atari, right?
I don't know. It wasn't, it was just a TV set, a big, huge thing. It was the table was a television screen. I don't know whether it was Atari or not.
Yes, we just learned that in Gabby's class, they did a history on the first game, which was a ping pong game. And you put these big screens on the TV.
Yeah, and then there became Pac-Man. Pac-Man was the big deal. I remember taking my students to Chuck E. Cheese for somebody's birthday. And I said, well, pizzas are up. Where's Mark? She said, well, he's playing Pac-Man. I said, well, isn't that over? She said, no, he's still winning. I mean, you can play the game for a half hour and then get your initials on. So that was Pac-Man. And then they got Pac-Lady. And then all these other ones that are very sophisticated are all out now. That,
Now everything's on a cell phone.
yes, now they're playing it on their cell phones. If you have enough money to buy the super cell phone. So
They're expensive.
yeah, I don't know. Students, it's funny. One of my young ladies this semester, she left her cell phone in the class. It's on the seat of her chair. My next class came in and said, "There's a cell phone here." So, well, let me see it. I'll hold on to it. And then she, at the end of the school, she started tracing her steps. End of school, she comes back, said, "Do you see a cell phone in here?" I says, "I don't know. Does it have a name? Describe it." Just and I said, see, he went all day and he actually survived without a cell phone. Why don't you just leave it at home and see if you go for a complete whole day? Test yourself. Says, well, I don't know if I want to do that.
A few hours without it was enough for her.
Yeah.
Yes, we've become very dependent on technology. Its pros and its cons. The pros is I'm able to speak to you. Well, you're in Hollywood and I'm over here in Orange County.
Yes, and I can speak to somebody all the way around the world too. My students, some of them are gamers. So I remember on a bus, we were taking a bus downtown to go to the science, from Fremont downtown to the science display down in Exposition Park. He's on his cell phone, and I said, "What you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm playing a game with this person." "Where's that person?" "In China." He's playing a game with a person in China.
Wow.
On a cell phone in the bus ride to go downtown. I says, "Wow, this is something else."
It really is. It's definitely made us connect to places we never could before.
So there's positive things about that. And then if you're just playing games and that's all you're using it for, or you're just doing gossip and texting people nonsense, says, "Yeah, I'll meet you at lunchtime over by the whatever." Do they got to text somebody that? Can't you just know that you walk out and find them and hunt around and maybe have an adventure and find somebody new? Anyway.
We need balance of both worlds, right? Balance to connect in person and, using the phone when we need to.
Yes.
That balance is important. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Niebergall. I really appreciate your time.
Well, it's a nice visit. I'm glad you got to see you once in a while.
Me too. We need to connect more for sure. I love speaking to you. I love hearing your stories. And I want to learn so much. I want to learn history. I just love listening about history and people's lives and journeys. I feel they're very motivating. And yours is very inspiring and motivating. And we thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for talking with me.